I'm the big man, attorney Joey Franks of Big Man Law here in Jackson, Mississippi. And we got a fun one today with Judge Middleton. And frankly, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a spoiler. This is somebody I don't feel bad for. Whenever you ignore the court system, there's no cause for that. I've yet to see a judge where if you showed up and you said, hey judge, I'm having these problems, this is legit my broken transmission bill, that they're gonna leave you out to dry. So when it comes to this woman, as you'll see, it's hard to feel bad for her. I'm sorry it's been a little bit late getting the video out. Been a lot of things going on here, especially in the city of Jackson. Our good mayor got indicted yesterday, so we're all having a little bit of fun with that. The district attorney's also in some hot water right along with the mayor. Allegedly, bribery is a big issue here in Jackson. Shocker, shocker. But anyhow, that will be a different video. Stay tuned. But here you go with Judge Middleton.
All right, we're ready to address the matter of Courtney Marie Marshbank. File number is 241478FY. She's here about 40 minutes late for her sentence, but she is here. This was a charge of carrying a concealed weapon, which is a felony punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment, reduced to a misdemeanor of improper possession of a firearm in a non-game area. The court set this matter for sentence today, trying to figure out things and get some more information. Defendant has lots of unpaid tickets. And I was hopeful that she would pay something, but apparently, according to the staff, there hasn't been anything paid.
At least 50, maybe $75.
Okay. All right. Mr. Gibson, what would you like me to know?
Well, the defendant indicated that she's saying that she wants to withdraw her plea, which I'm not quite. She's telling me that she thinks because of the fact that in Indiana you can have a concealed carry and you don't have to have a permit. I guess she's somehow thinking that that should apply to her in Michigan. I don't believe that that would be the case. So, I mean, I don't quite understand what her thinking is on that, but, you know, as far as I can see, she will not be convicted of a felony by accepting this plea. So it should not affect her right to to own a firearm in Michigan. She should be allowed to maintain her firearm rights. From what I could see, there is a long list of, if you get convicted of a misdemeanor within 8 years, that could affect your ability to apply for a CCW permit for 8 years in Michigan. But from what I could see, what she was convicted of in this case would not be on the list of crimes to not have within an 8-year period. So, but I would ask the court, if I would ask the court to sentence the defendant to fines and costs here. I think we have a situation where she had a firearm and she says that she didn't know where she could store it in the car because the car didn't have a trunk. So I think we have, from what I can see here, my understanding would be that the defendant, she was not aware of the firearm laws. And so she ended up violating our firearm laws. But I think it was more or less, I don't believe she had a criminal intent. I just think she was not familiar with the firearm laws. And so she violated the firearm law, which if she would have had knowledge, she hopefully could have made accommodations to have the vehicle in her car and safely and legally transport it. So I think she's going to learn from this, and I think she's going to make herself aware of the firearm laws going forward. She indicates to me that she'd like to hopefully have a CCW in the future. And so I would ask the court, as I said, to sentence her to fines and costs. Thank you.
Ms. Marshbank, where do you live? Do you live in Indiana now?
Yeah, I live in Shipshawana.
All right, at the 675 West address?
Yes.
All right, and do you wish to withdraw your plea?
I mean, well, so I was reading, and it says that in Indiana residents over the age of 18 with no felonies are legally allowed to conceal carry without a license in the state of Indiana. And Michigan's concealed carry laws say that they honor Indiana's laws when an Indiana resident is over here in Michigan. So, but I didn't know about this until this morning when I was reading. So, I mean, if that's, correct, which I mean, I believe it is, then that would technically mean that I didn't commit any crime because I am a resident of Indiana over 18 with no felonies, and it was my gun, and that should be not, I didn't do anything illegal in that case. And I did bring money today to pay my fines. I was waiting on my card, and that's why I was late. I had to fix my battery so that my truck would start. So I am very sorry about that. I think it would not start at all.
She indicated she could pay, she believes, $50 to $75 today, right?
Yeah, I have $100 on my card right now, but I do need gas to get back. So I didn't put in a lot to get here because I was in a hurry and I was already late. So I was trying to just put in enough to get me here.
You have a history of just blowing stuff off. I looked at your driving record. You had 12 FAC or FCJ suspensions.
What's that?
Failed to comply with judgment and failed to answer citation.
I don't know what that means. I've never got anything in the.
They were all erased. Kalamazoo County, Allegan County, St. Joseph County. You had 12, 6 of each. Failed to comply with judgment means you got a ticket and you didn't pay it. FAC means you got a ticket and didn't answer it.
What?
Yes. Well, they used to suspend your license for that, but they don't anymore. I don't agree with that. I think they ought to suspend your license if you don't pay your tickets.
I know I have fines in Allegan related to tickets that I have a payment plan on. I didn't know anything about Kalamazoo.
Well, and then you have all these cases here, and you keep driving around with no license plate, which I don't understand.
I can't get ahead.
You have 4 charges of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus this is 5. You're driving around with it without a license plate, not even an expired plate. And I didn't know if that was a sovereign citizen thing. They didn't believe you needed a plate. They just keep driving around with no plate. Then you get the ticket and you don't pay it.
No, this was the only one where I didn't have a license plate. All the rest of them, they were expired.
All right. Well, this one
that car
is
got
just
stolen.
no plate. And so, but you haven't paid the other ones. 2209111, 22911A, 23433, 23569, 23698, 23690, 23091. You got a speeding ticket in March of 24. You didn't pay that either. Then you had this case. Your landlord moved to evict you. You didn't show up for court. You got defaulted and the sheriff had to come put you and your dogs and cat out on the street. You just ignore stuff. And, but you haven't paid any of the fines here going back to 2022 and including a speeding ticket that you got in March. Then I delay the matter to allow you to pay something and you haven't paid a cent. Then you show up late. And you have some idea that somehow you have some defense. The prosecutor is not here. The law says I'm supposed to grant a motion to withdraw a plea with great liberality if given before sentence. So I'm going to give you what you asked for, and the prosecutor is going to recharge you with a felony and convict you of it probably. But I'm going to allow the defendant to withdraw a plea.
But like, have you heard of the Indiana thing? I mean, if that's not the case, then then I'll just take the plea.
I don't believe it is the case. Something you read on the internet doesn't amount to a legal defense to a carrying concealed weapon. You're in Michigan, you got a gun, it's in your car. Else you're driving around with no license plate, which is like saying, please pull me over. Any officer that sees you driving with no plate is gonna pull you over. You weren't really doing anything else. And to your credit, the gun was not loaded.
I was homeless at the time, so I had to I had to go.
Yes.
I've been homeless ever since I got kicked out of that apartment that I missed the court for.
Well, they kicked you out because you hadn't paid your rent.
No, yeah, I did.
Well, let's
Yeah, I
see.
paid my rent and I should, the lease was for, was in somebody else, no, that's what I showed up for.
Well, let's see what happened. If you have a defense, you have to show up to make it. And so when you don't show up, you automatically lose. So let's see what the deal is. Who lives in the Shipshawana address?
Pamela Danoon.
And who is she related to you?
No, she's, old friend's mom. The friend's not around, but she's,
So did you just sort of use that as an address?
no, that's where I'm staying right now. I just started staying there like that. I was on my way there, when I got pulled over with the gun in my car.
Where is the gun? It was registered in your name. Where is it registered?
Kalamazoo, I think, or that's where I was living when I bought it.
All right, well, then your Indiana defense is even worse. The gun's registered you in Michigan.
Good point.
All right, let's take a look.
I mean, I see something about a reciprocity where it says that Michigan has reciprocity agreements, but I don't.
What is reciprocity?
Means we respect the law of another state. Let's see here. Your rent was $2,245 a week. They alleged that it was $2,325 behind. At the time I entered the judgment through April 7th, you owed $4,285 in unpaid rent for a total of $4,469. But again, you never showed up. So,
That was the White Pigeon address?
yes.
Yeah, I think that day I didn't wake up for court or something, or I forgot, or I thought it was the day after or something. I don't remember which one it was. That was,
All right,
that
well,
was a
then
mistake. I didn't purposely not come though. That was an accident.
Well,
I
when you
knew
don't
about
come, you
myself.
automatically lose. And I gave you until April 6th to vacate. And you didn't move. So on April 13th, Sergeant Morse came, put you and your 12 cats and 1 dog out,
And my son.
and your son. So that's always very unpleasant.
It's been a rough year.
And what you said at the time of your arrest in July is that you were staying at some quote unquote sketchy motel and you needed the gun for protection, which would still seem to mean at that time you were a Michigan resident. But I don't think that defense is going to go very far. You bought the gun here. The gun was registered here. You possessed it here. And on the day of the arrest, you told the officers that you lived here. So even if there is reciprocity, which I don't believe in this context applies, if you had a CCW permit from Indiana, it would be valid here in Michigan. That would essentially mean all anybody needs to do is register a gun in Indiana and then you can take it everywhere. Try doing that in New York City and see what they do with the New York firearm laws. But Mr. Gibson, if you believe there's some sort of a defense there, the prosecutor isn't here to argue about it. So I'll give you a couple of options. I'll let you withdraw your plea and set the matter for a pre-exam conference. I'll adjourn it to allow your lawyer to file some motion to dismiss under this reciprocity theory, or we can proceed with sentencing this morning. But I'm not very impressed. You have enough money to buy a gun. You don't have enough money to pay your tickets.
I bought the gun when we had the COVID money. I wasn't homeless at the time. I just had a really nice house in Kalamazoo before I got kicked out because of the violent relationship.
Your Honor, if I could have just a brief moment with my client in private to discuss with her.
Yes, we would have done this at 11 o'clock if it showed up at 11 o'clock. We'll do it during my lunch hour. So yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know if the court would be inclined to adjourn the sentencing to give me time to confirm that this would not be a defense. But from what I can see, there was, for states that had similar laws to Michigan, where you had to take a gun safety course, where you had to sign up to get the CCW. My understanding is that Michigan grants reciprocity to states that do that. And I think that Indiana at one point did do that. But now apparently Indiana allows anyone to conceal carry without having to have any kind of permit. So I don't know if that means that Michigan would give reciprocity to a state that doesn't have that.
I'll allow you an adjournment, but Ms. Marshbank.
Does that mean that I'm getting charged with a felony again?
No, we haven't withdrawn your plea yet. That might be what you deserve. You have a Michigan driver's license. You were living in Michigan at the time this happened. You purchased the gun in Michigan. You registered the gun in Michigan. You're couch surfing with somebody in Indiana, and you contend that somehow that gives you the right to carry a gun in Michigan. I don't believe it does. I was looking at the stuff that I was talking about. You have 8 unpaid tickets here in St. Joseph County. As indicated, those used to result in suspensions. Looking at your driving record, which is on an older ticket when you were still living on Chicago Road, there's unpaid tickets in Kalamazoo and Allegan County. And when the law changed on December 4th of 2020, they cleared a bunch of unpaid tickets, 12. So your license is currently valid. The reason I bring all this up is because if I give you a fine, I don't have any faith that you're going to pay it, which is why I continued this to see if you'd make any effort to pay it.
No, I
ought to just give you 93 days in jail and wipe out all of your fines. So the problem, all of this comes from lack of money. I call driving without a plate, driving without valid insurance, driving while poor. That's not a derisive term. People just don't have any money and they're driving anyway because they have to get what they need where they need to go. But you're actually sticking in their eye and driving down the road with no plate on at all. And in addition to the no plate charges you have here in St. Joe County, you have a couple in another county, Kalamazoo, where you never paid the ticket, and Allegan, where you never paid the ticket. And I guess at one point, way back in 2017, you had some sort of repayment plan in Allegan. But literally 12 things, 12 unpaid tickets, they're still owed. but they don't suspend your license from it. And they all got lifted on December 4th of 2020 because the law changed. So
So the way the law is now, if you don't pay your tickets, they can't suspend your license?
correct.
But income taxes is in like a couple months, and my fines here are only like, how many tickets here are only like $1,000 and something. So I mean, I will easily pay that all in full as soon as I get my.
Well, the only reason you would is because I'm cracking the whip.
No, because it's kind of cheap. I mean, compared to like my other fines and tickets and stuff, like I thought it would have been way more for as many tickets that I've got out here so far, and it's not.
All right.
Well, Your
I'd rather
Honor,
just be cleared and done and be over with and not be in any trouble.
would the court consider potentially adjourning the sentence approximately 30 days with the idea that, is there a certain amount of money that the court would say that the defendant needs to pay a certain amount of money?
No, I just wanted her to pay some.
I'm paying today for sure.
And so she shows up today late. All of a sudden, she's going to make a payment. So it all just shows bad faith.
But I mean, am I one payment of say $50 to $75 is probably not enough to make a difference. So I guess.
Well, I don't want to punish her because she's poor. She isn't in a good financial situation right now, but there's a long history of this, including the most recent ticket and then the speeding ticket she got in March. She just blew it off like every other ticket she ever got in the last 5 years. And so eventually the birds come home to roost, and I'm not going to give you a fine that you're not going to pay. And so the other option is to do a jail sentence. This is a felony reduced to a misdemeanor. I don't think your defense, even if your theory is correct, that if you're an Indiana resident, they have reciprocity. I don't believe you're an Indiana resident on July 18th. And according to the Michigan Department of Motor Vehicles, you live in Michigan. You have a Michigan driver's license. And by the way, they send everything to the address on your driver's license, which would go to the Chicago Road address where you got evicted from, which was also blowing off paying your rent, blowing off appearing to court, waiting till the very last minute where the sheriff had to come forcibly put you out. You have a history of not addressing your problems. And so I'm not sure exactly all that's going on here. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I'll agree to adjourn the matter 30 days. Does your car have a plate on it now? How did you drive it here? How'd you get here?
I got a ride, but they gotta come back and get me.
Well, you said your car wouldn't start, so you were prepared to drive your car here with no insurance and no plate.
I mean, I couldn't just miss court.
I understand.
I mean,
Let's
I
make
don't know
sure
what to
she
do.
didn't
Like,
drive here.
I don't know. I've been homeless this whole time with my son and stuff. Like, it's been really hard to, and then my car got stolen, so I couldn't even get a job if I wanted to because I had no car at all. And then I just bought the truck 3 days before I got pulled over. That's why I had no license plate on it. I've never drove without a license plate in my life. That is like literally begging to get pulled over, especially when you don't have insurance either. It's kind of just like begging for a bunch of tickets or possibly get my car impounded.
And you're still gonna just keep driving with no insurance.
No,
Well, if you drove here, we're gonna have a little discussion. So did somebody drop you off or did you drive here? You drove here.
I didn't want to miss court. I mean, I can't go to jail. I have nobody to watch my kid.
Yes, if you did 93 days, you'd be out by Christmas. You got a giant gift from the prosecutor reducing this from a felony to a misdemeanor.
So I'll just take the plea.
Instead of treating it like a giant gift, you're treating it like an old shoe. And you're, like I said, nothing bad has happened. your technique of ignoring everything has so far been successful, except for the part where you got evicted. Because nothing's happened. You haven't paid a dozen or more tickets. You continue to drive with no insurance and no valid plate. And I'm going to give you a fine that you aren't going to pay.
I'm gonna pay it, I swear.
So I think there's jail in your future, but I will agree to adjourn this matter for 30 days to allow you to file this motion if you wish to, or make some provisions for what happens to you on the day of sentence. Because they gave you months to either pay the rent or move, and you didn't pay the rent and you didn't move. And then they gave you an additional 25 days to move out before they did the eviction. And yeah, at some point there's a consequence, but let's reset this. You can file a motion if you wish, Mr. Gibson. I don't think that her understanding of the law is currently what the status is, but even if it is, I don't think she was an Indiana resident at the time of this incident, which makes it all irrelevant. I guess I'm just kicking the can down the road because I don't know what to do. But at some point, well, the cows come home. So I'll see you on December 2nd at 10:30. Don't be late. And we'll address it at that time.
All right, this woman has so many tickets, it's ridiculous, and she's spread them out everywhere. And she's made no effort to pay anything. She is talking about paying $50 or $75 on the ticket. And something else that's interesting to point out about this case. This is the very reason I don't do public defender work, because they have absolutely nothing in the game. They have absolutely nothing to lose, and they want to make stuff as far as arguments, it makes no sense. She doesn't even know what reciprocity is, but that's exactly what she's asking for. What she's arguing is that in Indiana, for example, if you have a concealed carry license, then Michigan would honor the same license. And it applies to a lot of different licenses in different states, things like that, but this one is a concealed carry. But she doesn't have a concealed carry license. What's more, she's not an Indiana resident. It sounds like that's another point. She can be a resident of both Indiana and Michigan, but what they're going to look for is her domicile, most likely. It's splitting hairs there, but I'm sure somebody will post in the comments what the difference is. It's a fun thing to know. You can have multiple residences. Keep that in mind. But here she's clearly living or domiciled in Michigan at this point in time, and she doesn't have a concealed carry license, so there's nothing for there to be reciprocity for. She's just making the argument that if you have a concealed carry in Indiana, she doesn't understand that just because you have a gun in Michigan that you could have in Indiana, that it carries over. You've got to go get that concealed carry license. And that's where they're talking about you have to take the courses and things like that. I took the enhanced concealed carry class here at Two Gun Tactical. They did a great job. It was over in Flowood. They've opened up a Ridgeland one. If you're in Mississippi and you're looking for a fun place to go shoot, they are awesome. John White, I think, is an owner or co-owner of it. He taught the class. Great. Anyhow, that was an aside. But they don't have any of that here. So this woman is toting a gun around illegally, and it's also interesting to note how atrocious it appears Michigan's gun laws are. In Mississippi, carrying a gun in your car is just an extension of the Castle Doctrine. And there's some other circumstances where you can concealed carry lawfully, like a business owner on their premises. But you can also open carry in Mississippi. For example, if I had a pistol just sitting on my hip out in the open where everybody could see it, then that would be perfectly lawful in the state of Mississippi. Though I do think it would strain my suspenders just a little bit, so I'm going to hold off on doing it that way. But this woman just thinks that everything should fall into place for her, and she's done this tactic that Middleton says, you know, it's a great tactic, it's worked for you, of ignoring everything, but it's biting her in the butt now. And it's really interesting because we managed to get an eviction tied up in this, we have got misdemeanor charges tied up in it, and a felony. And in case you didn't catch, this possession of the firearm is a felony. That means you're going to lose your right to vote, you're going to lose your right to own firearms, correction. See, it's all about precision in language. You're going to lose your right to own I can't get it right. You're going to lose your right to purchase and possess a firearm. It is perfectly lawful for a felon to still own a gun. They just can't touch it, and they can't have any possession of it. So it doesn't really work out most of the time. But this woman is an interesting case in that she has so much going on, and she's trying to make her own legal arguments. And I hate to crap on another attorney, but this guy's not exactly knocking it out of the park over there. Also, whenever it comes to sentencing or something like that, it's incumbent upon any attorney, and a good attorney is really going to go over it and make sure a client understands it as well. I never have a client show up at a sentencing hearing that says, I don't understand something. I don't know what's going on. In fact, I tell a client whenever we're doing a sentencing hearing, if that judge says anything you don't understand, or you don't think we've covered, or you don't agree with, you grab my coat sleeve and say, Joey, I don't know what's going on here, and I'm going to stop the train. We're going to make sure everybody's on the same page before we move forward at all. And Middleton lets her withdraw her plea, and he says the law in Michigan says that it should be liberally done, that is, allowing to withdraw. So kudos for him. I always like when a judge actually acknowledges that law exists. But this should have been worked out with the attorney beforehand. I get the client's probably not the most responsible person, 40 minutes late, things like that. But I'm a big fan of getting on the phone, getting text messages out there, getting emails out there. I will hound you to get you on the phone before a court date. And I want to make sure you understand what's going on, because I show up ready for a trial or a plea, because the judge may crap on the plea, in which case you're going to go to trial. So you come fully prepared no matter what. And this defense that the client clearly doesn't understand the law, the defense isn't going to apply from what I can tell. I would be absolutely shocked. And Middleton sees it, this other attorney sees it, but it's her decision ultimately. But I think the attorney should have done more to prep her and know what is going on. And frankly, if a deal's falling apart, go get the prosecutor, go get the judge, say the deal's falling apart, we have some issues, and you'd be amazed at how everybody sitting down talking about it can put it back together and make everybody on the same page, because usually it has to do with some small miscommunication or somebody not understanding some terminology that's being used, and they're smart enough to stop everybody and say, I don't know what's going on, and that's perfectly fine. But anyhow, so Middleton ended up kicking the can down the road 30 days, and how that's going to shake out is going to be interesting. Be interested to see if that attorney files a motion to dismiss, because you also run into a problem that if a client wants you to file a motion on something, you look at the case law and it doesn't support your position, you've got to be candid to your client and you've got to be candid to the court. You can't fudge things to make anybody happy. I would rather everybody be upset with me because I was truthful to them than anybody be deceived by me over anything, honestly. So if you keep everything on the up and up, then that goes a long way. In fact, Charlie Munger said you always want to buy ethical businesses, because any business that has a trickster in it is bound to fail, and I firmly believe that and agree with that. And I try to keep that same dealing with my clients and the courts and everybody I deal with. So interesting to see this video, interesting to see this young woman. She's clearly having some troubles. I'm not disputing that, but the problem is she's ignoring them. Even Middleton brings up, you're driving while poor, but at the same time, you're just ignoring these problems. And it can only work for so long. That is a tactic that is normally not successful at all. And it looks like she's had some moderate success with it, but it's catching up with her. And Middleton says she's going to end up in jail, it looks like. So, really interested to see how this will shake out. I'm also really interested to see how things in the city of Jackson are going to shake out. I've been trying to get to that indictment and read it in detail. I've just been so busy with my actual work that I haven't got a chance to tear into it, and I'm really excited about that. I say I'm excited to tear it into it and the work kept me away. I guess I could have taken time away from Jake last night, but that's just not on the option. I like playing with the little guy. So, if you have any thoughts on this, drop them in the comments. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber and you're still here, you should be a subscriber. Enjoyed it. Y'all have a great day.